In this video I want to talk to you about a topic that I suppose not many people have thought of, but what actually happened was a couple of weeks ago a friend of mine said to me about being gay, and I think the topic was talking about getting engaged and that sort of thing, but he made a very little comment which was about when someone asks you if you're gay, about the follow-up questions that seem to follow, and does it not get annoying that people are constantly asking you about your sexuality? Any gay person is going to turn around to you and say that in an ideal world, of course, you wouldn't have to come out the closet, you wouldn't have to have gay pride, you would be treated as a normal citizen in society, no one would be out for you to be dead or anything like that, but of course we don't live in a real world. But things have changed, and that's why people ask the questions that they do. So I want to explain to you a little bit what it's like when people ask you about your sexuality. I feel quite honoured in the fact that I can actually be open about my sexuality. I do have a number of friends who can't be open about their sexuality, be it for religious reasons, because they think they're going to lose their family, because of threats of violence, that sort of thing. And I can see their sort of position in their life as to why they can't be open about their sexuality. So I do feel a little bit more honoured the fact that I can be, and that for the most part I am accepted. At the same time, I also feel a little bit sort of criticised, because I do feel that I am open about my sexuality, but as a part of doing that in this modern day and age, when you are open about your sexuality, you are opening yourself to criticism as well, because a lot of people don't sort of, I want to say accept your sexuality, but the truth of the matter is they don't understand your sexuality. That, for me, is where homophobia actually comes from. I think it's a lack of education. It isn't a phobia. You are not afraid of a person's sexuality, because your phobia doesn't exist until you know about it. And when you know about it, if you are afraid of a person's sexuality, you're going to do everything that you can to avoid it. You're not going to stand there and argue. You're not going to argue what is morally right and morally wrong. That sort of thing. For example, I'm not going to stand there and argue with a spider, but I hate the fuckers. So if I see one, I'm going to be going the opposite way to that spider. I also got to meet, earlier on this year, I think I've spoken about it before on here, I got to meet Jay and Brian LeFew off Gay Family Values here on YouTube. I got to meet them earlier on this year in January, and I got to sort of ask them about their opinions on the gay community and, you know, marriage equality and that sort of thing. And we did touch upon the education of the gay community, not actually educating the gay community, although that would also fall in, but teaching people about the history of the gay community, because we do have, in the LGBT community as a whole, we have an amazing history, and it is about time that people started to know about our history. I mean, little bits of education are out there for people. You know, there was that movie that came out not long ago, the Imitation Game. I keep trying to say Impression Game or something like that. The Imitation Game is a film about Alan Turing, and although, okay, the main part of the film is about him creating like the world's first computer and everything like that, it touches upon the fact that he was gay and he was chemically castrated, and that led to him taking his own life. Now, although that isn't actually teaching people this is why that happened, it is teaching people this shit happened. So that there is little bits of education out there, but it isn't sort of a proper education like what you would get in a school. The reason that I say about education so much is because when people ask you about your sexuality, that's what they're after. They are after a bit of education. And this falls across like every age range that you can think, because things like being homosexual or being a lesbian, whatever it is, they are not taught in education. They never have been, and for the foreseeable future they never will be. So when you open yourself up about your sexuality, a lot of people do want to know more. And I personally feel that I can't refuse to answer those questions, because I do feel sort of honoured again to be in the situation that I am in this day. I don't just mean honoured as in I can be open about my sexuality, but I do mean as in I can be answering questions that people have. You know, 30, 40 years ago, if I was to try and be open about my sexuality, the likelihood is I would have been put in a mental asylum. I would have faced chemical castration. I could have been put in prison, that sort of thing. And in certain parts of the world, you still can be. You know, I'm not being ignorant to that fact, but I live in a society at the moment where acceptance of the LGBT community as a whole is sort of gaining a little bit of progress. So to answer someone's questions, even if it is the same question that you've answered a million times before, it is still progress, and you can put your honest opinion forward. The reason that it is so important to do so in answering the people's questions is because you are educating people. A lot of people already will say, I don't have a problem with gay people, but you will find that maybe not even fully, but they will know a little bit more about the gay community than someone who doesn't know anything about the gay community and is homophobic, or whatever term it is that you want to use. You know, the people that claim to have a problem with gays know very little about them. They might say a thing or two about the sex, but that's only presumed. They don't actually know that factually. You know, I can name you some examples. There was a church in America, the Westboro Baptist Church. They say a lot of things about what happened in a bedroom between either two men and two women, that sort of thing. But they don't know about the gay community because they haven't gone out and done their research. There was I think he was a Christian pastor again, and he is famously in a video here on YouTube that a lot of people will see. Oh god, no, what is it? He said the gays eat the poo-poo, and that is on about how I think his main sort of idea was to do with rimming, which is a sexual act, and I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but he says in his video it's about sucking the fecal matter out of someone's anus and then eating it, and that's his impression of gay sex. Now, as a gay man, I can confirm that's not kind of what I'm into. I'll just be honest with you there for a second, but you see what I mean there? He's not clued up about the gay community at all. You know, probably at no point in his life has he actually sat down with a gay person and gone, okay, what do you do? You know, that sort of thing. You know, as an LGBT community, we face challenges throughout the world. Not just in America or the UK are we finding progression as such. I mean, we have marriage equality here in the UK, but that isn't full progression because it is LGBT. We also have to include our transgendered friends, and you know, well, transgender, transsexual, the two of them. The thing is, though, is that while we can celebrate, yes, we have marriage equality and LGBT this and LGBT that, we need to look at the trans side of our community because they're kind of ignored. And I think, if memory serves me right, I'm not too sure if the law has changed yet, but remember a friend of mine a couple of years ago saying that in New York you could still be sacked for being trans. That's New York, one of the most progressive states in America, and you can still be sacked for being trans. And yet at the same time, most Americans are jumping up for joy going, oh yeah, LGBT progress has been made because we now have same-sex marriage and everything like that. You don't. It's not massive progress because there is still a part of that community that is still treated like shit. And to be celebrating so much about even marriage equality, you know, we have a lot of brothers and sisters around the world that are persecuted and killed, sometimes tortured, for being LGBT or T. And that is not progress. But you know what is progress? When you get asked the questions about being gay, being bisexual, being trans, and you answer it. The more people that know the shit that our community has to go through, maybe not even in your part of the world, in any part of the world, if they know about it, they are more likely to talk up about it. So if someone asks you questions about what it's like to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, answer the question. Don't get offended by it, because that is progress. It is changing people's minds, and that's what we need to do. Equality will eventually come throughout the world. These things do take time, though. They take minds to change. You know, in places like Russia, for example, you can change all the laws that you want to, but you're not going to change the mindset of people. That doesn't happen overnight. The laws change overnight. Acceptance through people doesn't happen overnight. and that's kind of the saddest thing of it all. So when I get asked questions about my sexuality, am I bothered about it? No. Am I happy about it? Couldn't be happier.